Hello and welcome to the Say Yes Movement podcast with Heather and John, where we help you say yes to all the scary stuff, helping you with your professional and personal growth. Hey, Heather, how are you doing today?
I am doing amazing. It is Friday. It is Friday moment, the time that we reset our brain to look for all of the good things that happen. So, John, what are you celebrating for your
Oh,
Friday moment this week?
every time you ask me the question, I'm like, really? I got to come up with another one.
Yes, you
Yes,
do.
yes, I do. It's funny because, I talk to some people and they're like, why are you always celebrating stuff? Because it's good for you. I'm celebrating. Oh, what am I celebrating this week? This week, I am celebrating rest. So this week I kind of took my foot off the gas pedal when it came to like training, and just enjoying recovery, enjoying feeling good, enjoying getting back into just listening to my body, which I think is incredibly important. And just a public service announcement for the guys out there: get your blood work done, go get your physicals done. If it's been years, go do it today. It's so important. Take care of your bodies. And that's the one thing I'm celebrating, is taking care of this vessel, which is my body, which is going to take me into my 100 years of life. So super excited about that. What about you, Heather? What are you celebrating today?
I am celebrating curious questions. I was asked a couple questions this week that I really had to dig deep to either find the answer or put it in my journaling exercise that I'm going to find the answer. And one of them was, what is going to be my word for 2025? And I was like,
Mm.
oh yes, I have to do the work to journal and get ready for that, because John, we both took the word believe for 2024, and part of the process is to look at how that showed up in our lives for the whole year, and then look at the next year and how do we want to influence it with what word. And there's a whole exercise that we go through, and if anybody out there would like to learn that exercise, we can definitely walk you through it. But have you thought of your word yet for this year, John?
Yeah. Well, it's funny, before we hopped on this call today, there's a couple of different words that sit on my screen, that I'm constantly looking at it. And what I love about the power of words, right? Like, as believe was the word for us this year. So I had a mug with the word believe on it. I went through the exercise of taking my entire family and having them give me their word for the year. And that's written up on our fridge, on the side of the fridge, so everybody knows, right? Um, so this year's word, I haven't fully fleshed it out, but it's starting to creep up, because as soon as you asked me the question, I looked over to the right and I was looking at my stickies, and I'm like, oh, you know what? I think I've got it, but I want to do a little bit more work before I share it out with the world. And yeah, super excited. It's one that I know will challenge me in a big way,
Well,
and
we're not
so
committed yet, but I think for our audience, why don't you share the word, and maybe we share our passwords, because this is you get to borrow any word you want, for those listening. And our word was believe. The year before, my word was strength, and it showed up not only in physical strength, which is where I thought it would only show up, but it showed up in mental strength too. So it's
yeah.
interesting how you influence your future self by choosing a word that will then show up for you whenever you need that strength.
Yeah, no, I love it. Now, when you had your word strength, my word was abundance, right? Just
Mm.
kind of letting things show up the way they needed to show up, and really stepping into uh, knowing that it was going to happen. Just having a very strong belief around that.
Mm.
Abundance did show up in many, many ways, right? Um, so yeah, abundance, believe, we both kind of settled on the same word, in 2024, which is fantastic. I the word I'm playing around for 2025, I don't haven't fully fleshed it out, so you can borrow this word if you want, because it's not, I don't know yet if it's going to be the word, but the word is bold, right?
Ooh, I like that one.
Just when I think about, and actually, lately I've been talking a lot about modeling, right? So one of the concepts in neurolinguistic programming, or NLP, is looking at people that are doing the things that you want to do, and then just model them, right? Essentially mentorship, coaching. And there's been a lot of conversations around modeling the behaviors of the people around us that are doing incredibly well, modeling the behaviors of people that are living the lives that we want. And the one thing I've seen in all of that is how bold they are in their approach to life.
Mm.
The word bold stuck out, and and I'm now as I'm saying it, I think that's the word, right? Um, you know, if I want to achieve the life that I want, and for the most part, I've designed most of it the way I want it to be, but there's still aspects of it that I still want some tweaking on, which I'm going to work on. But the one thing I've seen in all this modeling with all these individuals was just bold, like how bold they are, when they approach life. One of my favorite authors is Jesse Itzler. He wrote the book, Training with the Navy SEAL. He's an ultramarathoner. He's actually married to um, the founder of Spanx, Sarah Blakely. And, he has this concept around living a bold life. And one of the concepts he shares every year is you should be doing something at least once a year that's just going to blow your head away, right? Like it's just blow
Mm.
your mind in terms of doing something really big. And I know you do this, Heather, because you have these bold adventures where who knows, you're in Mongolia next year.
Papua New Guinea is next year. Yeah, I have these
So
crazy
those
pictures.
bold adventures that are things that you can really step into and live really powerfully and relive them anytime you want, because our imaginations can always take us there.
Mm.
So, do that one thing. What's that one thing for you? And one of the things I want to encourage everybody that's listening, what's the one thing that you're going to step into, that you're going to say yes to, that's really going to make your year? It's funny. I was photos, I love the iPhone, right? Like the iPhone brings up photo memories of things that show up. And there was a photo of me and Amanda in 2015. We both did the CN Tower, uh, what's it called? The CN Tower, where you walk on
The edge walk, the edge
the edge
walk.
walk. Yes, where we walk on the outside of the CN Tower. She was 13 at the time, and the photo popped up. I shared it with her, and I sent her a message. I'm like, skydiving next year. So as a way of making it the year that we do something really bold. So there we go.
Oh my God, I love that.
Just fleshed it out. Yes,
John, I think your word is bold, but like you said, and anyone can borrow these words. We can do them together. Celicia has adapt, and I love that word, adapt, and because it can show up in all kinds of things. And the best part about having a word, especially when it's around change, like
Mhm.
adapt, is when it shows up for you, you end up celebrating change as opposed to being scared or timid or shy about what's about to happen. So adopting a word that is change oriented is really going to help you through changes that you need to go through. So think about what you know is ahead of you for the future, and pick a word that's going to help you navigate that, those circumstances or what's going to happen. But be open to the possibilities of how that word's going to show up in an even bigger form, to have your brain solve the things that are in your future. And your future self is thanking you already for choosing this word and having it as a compass for your life. Compass of belief for us this year, for me at least, John, is going after some really big targets and goals, and my own personal bests that I'd
Mhm.
never done before. And I had to believe that it was possible, even though I didn't know how. A lot of the things that I did this year, I had no idea how I was going to accomplish them, but I stayed with belief and I took baby steps towards the next step in whatever that goal was that I was doing. So, that's how a word can be a compass for you for your whole life.
Yeah. No, and you stepped into something really important there. There were things this year that you stepped into that you just didn't know how to do. And we talk a lot about the how is none of your business, right? You just need to know the direction, right? Like you need to know where you're going. And you think about it like a GPS, right? A GPS, you punch in the address of the destination that you're going to, but there's, several different ways that you can get to your destination point based on what's happening. So it'll reroute you, but never keep your eye off the destination in terms of, in our, as we're talking here about the goal, never lose sight of what the goal is, whether it's to improve performance, it's to improve results, it's to hit targets, it's to achieve things that you can do. But there might be, ways that you don't even know about today that can get you there. And really the how is none of your business as long as you keep
I love
focusing,
that.
yeah, step by step towards that goal, towards that vision.
And commit to the end result, and people and things will show up for you if you're curious and looking for it. I have a bucket list, and I share it all the time with people because there's someone out there that knows someone that's going to introduce me to help
Mm,
me with some crazy ideas that I have on that bucket list. So, don't hold the beliefs or the goals that you have to yourself. And the more people you can tell, the more people are likely to help you succeed. And
yeah.
John, I had a pretty amazing yesterday. I got to hang out for a little bit of time with a pretty amazing human being, Mike Pinball Clemens. For those of you that don't know who that is, he is a ex Argos Canadian football player, and then he turned coach. So one week he was playing, and the next week he was coaching, and he shared some pretty amazing life lessons. But the main lesson was, you're not in this alone. You win as a
Mm,
team, and you play the game of life, of football, of whatever your goals are, for each other, not for yourself. And that was like,
yeah.
whoa, like I love how simple that message is.
Yeah, it's interesting that wow, right? When you have these aha moments, and I'm having one right now. We think about teams, we think about organizations, we think about our work when it comes to looking for support from others around us. But in our personal lives, we need the same thing, right? We're
Yes.
not an island. We can't do it on our own. And the one thing that I know in 2023, when I did the Ironman 70.3, I didn't do it alone, right? Like I had support from people around me. There was a team that
Mm.
supported me on the way to that goal. And when I had mentioned things online, or I shared it pretty publicly, so there was no there was no keeping it to myself, because I know there's a school of thought around, take your goal, keep it to yourself, be humble, don't share with others. I'm like, no, man, blast it out to the world so you can so the world can keep you accountable to the goal. And what I realized through that whole process was, you got to have the team around you. You got to have total strangers. And what I love, about what you just mentioned, what Pinball said, you don't do it alone.
You
We
don't do it alone.
never we never do any of this stuff alone.
No, the
We
magic is in
mhm,
lifting others, because when we lift others, we lift ourselves as well. And
yeah.
that's what a true team does for each other. So, whether it be your personal goals, whether it be work goals, if you're just, feeling lonely or feeling and not sharing those things, well, no one can help you because they can't read your mind. So step into being courageous to tell people what it is that you want. Go to your boss and say, where I think I'm going to be from my career perspective in 1 year, in
Mm,
6 months, and here's what I need from you. People
yeah.
want to help people, but they don't always know how to help you specifically. So form that team around you, form that magical bond, and you'll be amazed at the goals that you can achieve.
Yeah. Well, you said something incredibly important there too, Heather, right? Like having clarity in terms of where it is you want to go.
Mm,
Right. And actually, this has been showing up in a lot of conversations I've been having over the last 2 weeks around career progression, career growth. Like, what do I do? What's my next step? How do I get there? And it just comes down to, well, what do you want to do? Right.
mhm.
It's hard for anybody to help anybody if you don't know where they want to go. Right. Like
So true.
there's a beauty to clarity that says, you know, pick something, right? Like if you're indecisive, the one thing I realized very early on, pick something. And if it's the wrong path and you get there, just pivot and go do something else, right? Like, I think about my own personal career, 22 years working in the IT industry, 22 years, going down this path, realizing, maybe this isn't the path I want to go down anymore. And, I've stepped
And
into a
pivoting.
brand new path, right? Like you can pivot.
You
You don't
can
need,
pivot.
yeah, you don't need to wait and do something that, it's not that I dislike the work. It's just, it wasn't me anymore. And we're going through that evolution and that change, right? So get,
100%.
yeah, so get clear, right? Like if you're looking for support from your leaders inside your organization, you have to be clear on what you want to do next. And there's a couple of processes. And, one of the things I've been working with clients on is, process of elimination. Let's filter out this and let's filter out this. What's the one thing that you really enjoy? And, going through that reflective process really gives you clarity. Now, when you have your end of year conversation or you're doing your planning for 2025, F25, even F26, you're thinking in a bigger way. It's like, yeah, you know what? Maybe that leadership role is what I want to step into. Maybe I want to step into a senior role inside of an IT organization or inside of, a call center, or like whatever organization you're stepping into, but having clarity to say, you know what, that's what I'm going to do. And then if you get there and you achieve it, you can pivot if it's not right for you. You don't have to stay in it.
You don't have to stay in it. And, declaring it, not keeping it inside, how and doing that reflective process, which is writing it down, helps to activate different parts of your brain and get your body involved. And I want to share another thing that was really cool yesterday with Mike Pinball Clemens is, he's a coach, a sports coach. So, think of the locker room talks and the loudness and the softness and the get your whole body involved. And it reminded me, John, of everything that we've learned from a neuro-linguistic programming, that if you're just thinking something, you've only activated one of your modalities. But if you think it, then you say it with absolute presence, and then you move your body at the same time. Those three things together is a success pattern for activating all of your nervous system to be part of the solution or part of the thing that you're going after. And of course, he's a dynamic speaker, so he did all of these things right in front of me. But it reminded me that if we have a goal and we're just sitting on it, we're not activating any of those things for ourselves. So, the act of saying it, writing it down, speaking it on a daily basis, and really getting our bodies involved in it, that is a pattern of success that when we activate it, everything's possible.
Yeah. No, and listen, there's so much power to engaging, like you said, the modalities, right? You're using your body to get into that zone, to get into that place where you feel incredibly powerful. The one thing I love about sports athletes, and if you really watch them, right, and we've talked about this on other episodes this year, the power of priming, right? And when you look at athletes going onto the field, onto the court, onto the pitch, whatever sport they're in, they have a process that they go through to get their bodies ready for the game, right? So if you pay attention, you'll see that a lot of them have the same routine over and over to get them into that process. They prime, right?
Yes.
So the goal for all of us is, how are we priming ourselves every day, right? Like, just going
Every
back
day.
to that process, what are we doing to put ourselves in peak state, as Tony Robbins would call it, so we could show up in the most powerful way possible. So, something to consider as you're going through your day. And Heather, I know I got my priming exercise in this morning, and
I love it.
I know it might look a little bit funny, but I've shared this with my students. I share it with clients all the time. Get yourself primed for the day, so for the most part, how that day is going to turn out for you, because you've set yourself up already.
John, people laugh at me, but I love it because, when I see that people are nervous, I see that they're going to do maybe a speech or talk in front of a crowd. I'm like, okay, let's do the Taylor Swift. Let's shake it off. And I know that movement of the body is what's going to dispel some of those nerves. And when you're in an energy state that's high energy, your nerves kind of have to take a back seat. So, for anyone that wants to shake it off with me, and when I get you to do that, I'm doing it first. They follow suit. It's a way to get your brain activated and reframed to what's the future state, and not worried about how you're going to look or feel. So these are all neuro-linguistic programming techniques that we share on our Say Yes Movement podcast, but I'm ready for the call to action. And here's the call to action for everyone. What is going to be your word for next year? And start to think about the year you'd like to have, and what would be that one word that could be the compass for your life, so that you are saying yes to the stuff that scares you. That is your call to action for today.
Yeah, I love it. And we will keep lists. So here's my invitation as well. Send us your word. We'll keep track of your word for 2025. And then we'll check in periodically as we go through the year, through this podcast. How are you doing against your word? And we'll bring up the words, and we'll bring up the individuals that shared them with us, because I love doing that, because it's so powerful to say, yeah, your word was this, and you're still aligned with that. So yes, share that with us, please. I would love to have that added to our database, I guess. All right. Well, thank you everybody for listening to this episode of the Say Yes Movement podcast. Just remember, when you shift your mindset, you shift your life. Wishing you all a great one. Talk to you all soon.